Hello guys, welcome back, and in today's video we are going to talk about composition. So in the previous video I talked about inheritance and why some people believe that inheritance is a problem, you shouldn't be using it for code reuse. And we also argued for the case of people who think that inheritance can be useful when wanting to do code reuse. So we are not going to talk much about that in this video. I'm just going to mainly focus on composition, but I'm going to touch a little bit on inheritance. So we concluded that both people can be right and both can be wrong, and depending on what they are trying to achieve. And we showed examples of a car class and then other different subtypes of that car class, like gasoline cars, diesel cars, toy cars, electric cars, all inheriting from the car class. And we saw that when we have a scenario like that, there's a likely chance that inheritance is not useful for code reuse. And the reason being that those different types of cars might have the same behavior names, for example, starting, but the way they might achieve that may be a little bit different, because gas cars might start slightly a different way compared to electric cars and other types of cars. So when we try to use inheritance in that fashion, we might be encountering some problems. And so we also looked at the case when you should use inheritance. If you only had a car, or maybe you only had one type of car, like a gasoline car, then you can use inheritance and you won't be seeing a problem. But if you want to avoid all of that together, and you don't want to be making guessing games or making decisions on what you should do, I suggest you use composition. So what is composition? The idea of composition is very simple. Think about a car. A car is an example of composition. You have a prototype that companies make, and then they have little several pieces like engines, like tires, and all these other little pieces that help the car do what it's supposed to do: drive and stop and do all these things. Cars don't inherit that. They get assembled, and every part they need is put in them at assembly time. When they're assembling the car, they put every part that the car needs to perform its job. So they're compositing the car. They are taking little pieces here and there, and we assemble the car. It's just like us humans. I don't inherit speech from my parents. I don't inherit walking from my parents. Yes, my parents walk, but I don't do it the same way as them. So it doesn't make sense that I inherit those things and I don't do it the same way as they do. I don't talk the same way my dad does. So when God was creating me, he knew I needed speech. He knew I needed to see. He knew I needed to hear. And so he just composited those things in me. And now I have the ability to do all those things. And let's take a look at an example of composition in code. So this is it. As you can see, we have a Tesla, which is an electric car right down here. We have the make, and then the start function, and then the stop and go forward and reverse functions. So basically the start function for an electric car is this function, start electric car, and it says starting the battery. And then if you look at toy cars, it doesn't have a start. Okay, because it doesn't have an engine, it doesn't start. Toy cars are dumb cars, they don't start. And then we have a Toyota, which is a gasoline car, and it has a start method. And when you call start on it, it just uses the start fuel car, this function. This function can start any type of car that requires fuel, like gasoline, diesel. And then if we want to reuse that function down here with the Mercedes, which is a diesel car, we can just go ahead and reuse it. It's as simple as doing this. We didn't have to use inheritance, which is very much complicated and just mixed up together. It's a lot of code. This is very simple. We just have a function, and then when we are creating an object, we declare a property and we point to that function. So if we have another object which might need the same behavior, we just point to that function, and it's simple. We just created this function one time, the start fuel car one time, and then we can reuse it anywhere we want. So if you take a little bit of time and start to analyze, what would you see? Well, I think you can notice something. What we did is separate things, and then at creation time, when we are creating an object, what we did is compose it with the little pieces that we separated. So the only thing we did here is separated what changes from what doesn't change. So what changes here? All these functions, all these behaviors, they change as we keep creating new different types of cars. Even though we have the stop, and it stops all types of cars, maybe one day we will have another car and the stop method for all types of cars doesn't work on that car. We should then create maybe a function called stop that specific car, and then when we create the object, we can just reference that function. And then if we create another type of car that uses the same functionality to stop, we can just reference that function. It is as simple as doing this. So if you want to do code reuse and don't want to experience the hassle of inheritance, and you have different subtypes of things, use composition. It's simple. You're writing little simple functions, and when you are creating the objects, then you assign them the behavior that they need to perform the functionalities that they need to perform. Very, very simple, guys. Now, if you want to take this to the next level, you can. Maybe like right now we are explicitly like creating these objects, so we don't have a method of creating bunch of these objects, but it's simple. If you want to modify this, you can just create classes and maybe use one level inheritance where you can have a car, and then the different subtypes of cars that you will be creating may inherit is just the properties. Like make, every car you create has a make, so you can inherit that. But then when you are creating the functions, what you should do is inside the constructor for each different type of car, then declare properties called the stop, start, and then go forward, reverse, and then you can keep these functions up here outside and then just reference them. As simple as that. Then that will allow you to new up new electric cars, and a new electric car will reference the functions that are above. And that's simple. Use composition if you want to avoid the hassles of inheritance. Thank you so much, guys, again for watching this video. I hope you understand. But if you don't, I'm down here. Ask me a question in the comment section, and yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, you may like the video and comment on it, whatever you want to do, and also subscribe. Very important, and I will see you guys in a next video.